Morning everyone and welcome to this Licensing and Regulatory Committee meeting. We go to item 1, apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. I think prior to doing the apologies and substitutions, Chairman, we need to officially elect you as Chairman.
Right.
So therefore, Councillor Jackie Keane has been elected by the group leaders, has been nominated by the group leaders as Chair. Does anybody have any objection, or is everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. As for apologies, we've had apologies from Councillor Michael Goodridge and Councillor John Ward, and Councillor Michael Higgins has joined us on the virtual Zoom.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Minutes, item 2, minutes of the last meeting, pages 5 to 8. I'm sure you've all read those. And is everybody agreed that they're, well, for those that were on the committee last time, is everybody agreed that they're exact?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Right. Any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. We've had no declarations of interest, we've had no questions from members, and we've had no questions from members of the public.
Thank you. Actions authorised?
As it's your first meeting, you won't have agreed any, so therefore there's no actions authorised for this meeting.
Right. So the Licensing Act and review of the Council Statement of Licensing Policy. I'm going to hand over to Mr. Hughes for this because this has been agreed by the last Council, Licensing and Regulatory, but there is a couple of things that need to be looked at. So I'll hand over to Mr. Hughes to go through those for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the Licensing Act requires licensing authority to prepare and publish a statement of its licensing policy every 5 years. A draft policy was approved for consultation by members on the 27th of February this year. We had an 11-week consultation between the 3rd of March and the 19th of May. We've received 2 responses, which were attached in the report at Annex 1. An officer's request you consider the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody got anything? Yes, Councillor Munro.
Thank you. Am I to be the first to congratulate you to become chair? Yes, just 2 things. I'm very pleased with this. I've got no real problems at all. Why should we? 2 unrelated points. First of all, very pleased that on para 6, talking about the cumulative impact of a zone area, there was some talk a few months ago that the council should take a more proactive line in determining, who should be allowed to have a licensed premises and who hasn't, in view of competition and all the rest of it. And it comes up quite frequently in individual application hearings. So existing pub owners quite naturally don't want to see a new licensing premises in their area. But I'm very pleased indeed to see that the council is not actually going down that route. It's not our business to decide competition policy and the markets and all the rest of it. So I just thought I'd make that point, since it was actually talked about and is talked about by members of the public who come to see us. But we've got a hands-off policy. I think there is a saturation policy, so if another premises actually does affect the licensing objective, naturally we can step in, which is right and proper. Otherwise, hands off, leave it as it is, and I'm very pleased about that. The second one, unrelated, I may have missed it. There is an appeal process, as we know, to magistrates. And as this is going to be a reference document for applicants, I wonder if that appeals process could just be outlined here. But as I say, I may have missed it, but I couldn't see it. Just for the information of people.
I think it is in there, actually.
Is it? As I say, I may have missed it.
Isn't it, the appeals process?
Yeah.
just picked up the document and I think it features at page 26, which
Oh,
is
right.
page 45 of the committee. So I think we
Okay,
have it
well,
covered
I
very
obviously turned
briefly,
over two
albeit,
pages
but
at once.
it's there. Thank
Good,
you.
thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Munro. Just before I bring in Councillor Gale, I'm glad you raised that issue because it's something that, you know, all councillors come across with shopkeepers and that the fact that they don't want somebody else to open a shop near to them. So I'm glad that that's been made very clear that that is not part of our remit. Thank you. Councillor Gale.
Yes, thank you, and congratulations
Thank you.
on being chair. I've just got a couple of little queries really. On page 43, 18.5, towards the bottom of the paragraph, it says the council is preparing its local plan part 2. And in 18.6, on the second line down, it says the emerging local plan. Has our local plan part 2 not now been formalised?
Well, unless Gillian knows, this was taken from planning department, so I'd have to go back to the planning department regarding that if there's a particular issue with that.
Yeah, okay. I just thought the local plan part 2 had actually been through the process now and been adopted, but it could, maybe it's still in abeyance, I don't know. And the other query, just quickly, do we know who the executive portfolio holder is as yet?
No.
Okay, thank you.
We can certainly check about the local plan part 2, but as far as I'm aware that it's okay. Yes, maybe this is a little bit before.
Just to clarify regarding portfolio holders, we know who the executive members are, but we haven't actually been given their portfolios yet.
Thank you very much. So paper now. Oh, here we are. So with regard to the 2 pieces from the consultation, it's basically just a name change. So I don't know, hopefully you've all read that. And are you happy that the name check? Yes.
Well, I've got my 2 copies here and I've been through them, comparing one with the other. And I did have a couple of questions, but it probably is very straightforward. And I just
Okay.
wanted to thank Officer Hughes very much for formalising all this. Thank you. And I know it's hard work and you work under very restricted conditions in your little offices. So it's about the late night issues, I think. No,
What page? What page? are you on,
page
Councillor?
10 or page 29, and it's 6.11. I wanted to ask about the early morning alcohol restrictions and why, first of all, why do we have those? And secondly, why do we have to renew them every 3 years? Why is it 3 years, please?
Mr. Hughes?
It's just legislation. So we don't have an early morning restriction. Legislation allows us to in consultation with the police, and we haven't done that and we're continuing not to. And they said that you have to review them every 3 years. Currently, we don't have any, so we don't need to review it. And we do it every 5 years to do with the policy. If we did put one in place, then we'd have to review it separately, but it just works to review it with the policy at the moment. And if we don't require one, we'll keep doing it like that. But if we do introduce one at some stage, it's just to let you know that we would have to review it every 3 years.
Mr. Hughes?
Enforcement officers would inspect when we went out, so they'd be available, or the police, any authority went there. But if that was a condition on someone's licence, they would make the records. It's normally a diary or something like that. Just shows that they did a refusal or refused an underage person at this date and time.
And this is me asking because I do not know. If a pub is in an area where there is no pub watch, how are these records going to be kept, and by whom? Is it a legal thing that the publican has to keep the record?
What, for the refusals? These records, these are all individual for individual premises. So if I turn up to your pub and you've got a condition on your licence, you've either put it yourself or committee have put it onto your licence, then you're responsible for keeping the record and we will be responsible for checking it.
Well, I suppose I'm amazed that having had this document and it has gone out to the general public and premises and anyone interested, that there were only 2 or 3 responses, or 2 responses, and they were from our own officers.
We never normally get.
Do you never
many,
know? No. That is very sad. Thank you.
I think possibly either they haven't read the document through, or they've read it and realised it's a really very good document. And congratulations to you, Mr. Hughes, for a very, very full report. It's excellent. Thank you very much. But, you know, in light of the fact that we've only had 2 responses, is everybody happy with this document? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Mr. Hughes, I'm very impressed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your nice words about the policy, but I couldn't do it without Gillian. Gillian supports me keeps me on the straight and narrow. Regarding the fees, on the 27th of February this year, the Licensing and Regulatory Committee approved the schedule of taxi and private hire licensing fees and charges for the 23-24 budget. In accordance with legislation, the fees were advertised and consulted on. No objections were received, and therefore the fees were agreed by the Licensing Committee on the 27th of February, took effect on the 30th of May 2023. So it's just to give you an update, because they would know if there had been objections or comments, then it would come back for you to consider them. But legislation says if there's no objections, the date that was set, it takes immediate effect.
Yeah,
on
they're
the first day.
obviously quite happy with the fees. Councillor Rubini, you were first, and then Councillor Reid.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. Congratulations on being elected chairman, by the way. I just wonder, because obviously I'm new to this committee. Paul, it says here obviously that we've got the new fees and charges and there were no objections to it. As you know, we are now working very closely with Guildford. And I went to a talk over there when they were doing some training. Do we have a relationship on fees or anything with Guildford? Because the only thing that concerns me was they were talking about some fares coming into our area and presumably our fares could go into their area. Is there actually a tie-up between the 2 councils? Do we know what they're charging? Do we change ours? Because I don't know the process.
No, they're not. And you might be fares. We both set our own fares as well. So fares are what they charge the public, and fees is what we charge them for the license. And that's what we're looking at here, fees. And we can't make a profit from the fees. It should only, just cover the cost of the service. And Guildford have a different policy to us. They have things like the RAP, so they've got to recover things like that. They have CCTV policy. That's why their fares are different to ours, because the drivers have to get the cost to get their thing, and the fees go back to the staff and what it costs to run the service. So that's what our fees are based on. We can't make a profit. So depending on their setup at Guildford, their guild setup is different. So they'll do their fees based on their financial forecast set by their audit department, financial team, and we'll do the same. But yeah, maybe when we, if we had more of a, I don't know, it all depends what the councils do. If they merge the two teams, and then it would be one team, but then I don't know how that would work because we're still different districts. So, but there's possibly some potential on the fees, but not the fares.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation. I have a little bit more understanding now, because I agree he did talk about the RAP and the CCTV. And although I might like to have seen the CCTV in our policies, at the moment it isn't, so I can understand we couldn't recover those costs. So I can understand now why there's a difference between the two fees. Thank you.
I know we've said that the taxi and private hire fees have been approved. Can you talk about the consultation process and on that, please?
Yeah, so there's a set process. So the fees that the budget, the finance team as part of the budget comes forward to the committee. If they exceed £25 on certain ones, like cost of vehicle, cost of a driver, etc., the legislation says they must be advertised. Anything over £25, which they all will be. It's old legislation going back many years. So we then have to publish it in a newspaper, and we have to advertise the closing date for the objections and when a date for when the fees are going to take effect. So we put that in place. If there's no objections, that date, which we put forward, was the 30th of May, the fees take effect, which is what's happened here. If there was objections, it would be coming probably to this committee today, and then you would consider the comments from those fees, and then there's another date which has to be within a month for the fees to take effect then.
Thank you. I'm asking really on behalf of new members that have joined this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and congratulations as well. The question which I've got is, or the point I'd like to make is, follows on from Councillor Rubini's remarks about collaboration with the Guildford licensing authorities. Collaboration, I believe, is good, but I would emphasize that from my perspective, we should maintain a completely independent licensing and fees policy for us here in the Waverley Borough. It is different to that Guildford, and I think it's very important that we do recognize that that is our authority and our licensing rates.
Thank you, Councillor Davidson. I do agree with you. I think it's very important that we retain our individuality. And as you say, Guildford is so totally different to us and we know our taxi drivers. And I think we should be independent. And that is something that when it comes to discussions that this committee will have their say on. And I think that is very important. So yes, that's very much taken on board. Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you. As I'm a new member, and James as well, I think, he says over £25. So could you just tell me what the new fees are? Just so I've got no idea whether it's 26 or 2000, or I've got no idea. If you could let me know, that'd be great.
Yeah, drivers offhand, because they're for a 3-year license, the drivers. The operators were a 5-year license. Vehicles are a 1-year license. So yeah, they vary, and there's different charges for different things. And Yeah.
Yes, which I can just about make it out. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Thank you.
It may assist for me to help clarify matters for new members, but the legislation goes back to 1976. So hence the limit on the fees being at £25. That's set in legislation at section 70 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. We do in fact have a very helpful flow chart about the processes, and it does involve a degree of consultation which has already taken place before this members were brought together, but I can circulate that after the meeting. Of course, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Julian. As I said, it would be very helpful if everybody had that flow chart that they could refer to. Thank you. Thank you.
Could I just also mention, Councillor, just on that, it is quite important, the £25, because Guildford, a number of years back, hadn't advertised it, and they were challenged about it, and they had to pay a substantial amount of money out back in to the drivers because they hadn't advertised their fees.
So we are being very correct. Thank you. Any more questions on that?
Chairman. Just so members are, what I'll do is I will attach the flow chart to the minutes as a separate document. Okay.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Councillor Rubini?
I can include that as well. Yes.
Thank you very much. So we go on to the Licensing Act 2003, get my teeth in. Licensing subcommittee since the last meeting. Hopefully you've read those. So there was licensing B on the 27th of February, licensing A on the 17th of April, and licensing B on the 24th. Can I take those as read, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. I think with that. Well, thank you.
Sorry. I do apologise. This is another one that I forgot to put on the agenda that I should have. Regarding the licensing subcommittees, obviously new members may not be aware, but we have, as well as the licensing and regulatory, we have licensing and general purposes, which deals with taxi drivers. And then we also have licensing sub A, B and C, which deal with licensing premises and street trading. Is everybody happy to appear on a licensing sub?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. What
Everybody's
I'll
happy
do
with
then,
that?
I'll just slot them in.
Yeah, if you could make sure that everybody knows which one they're on.
I will indeed.
That would be-
Yes.
Some-
yes, Chair,
sometimes,
no problem.
sometimes it does get a little confusing sometimes. Well, it does for me, but yeah.
As a licensee in Farnham, when I spoke to the Democratic Services Officer, she said I could be on the subcommittee, but I couldn't be on the one which is discussing Farnham ones. So if I can be on the opposite to one of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, what I do tend to do is I do tend to look at the where the application is and tend to avoid the ward, any conflicts. So I will put members that are not in that area on the sub for that item. Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Could you also talk about how substitutions are made? Because I think that's important for new members particularly.
Yes, so regarding substitutions for the subcommittees, I will sort of, if somebody's given an apology or that's the subcommittee, because I rotate the subcommittees round for each meeting. If it just so happens that there is a conflict, I will phone you up and sort of, or send you an email just to say, can you substitute for that meeting? And if you can let me know as soon as possible if you're unable to, so that I can get that position covered, because there is only 3 on the committee, which means that obviously if somebody doesn't turn up for the sub meeting, it can be a bit of a conflict to only have 2 members on that meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
would it be possible for you to leave a message for them, for a sub member? Because they don't, you know, sometimes I miss one because I haven't seen it on my tablet. And so sometimes a phone call, my husband is looking at me and grinning, Councillor Rubini, but it is a fact that I sometimes miss a message on my tablet, so a phone call is quite helpful. Thank you. Right, I think we can call it a day. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. Thank you, Gillian. Thank you very much, Kimberly. New members, I hope you'll enjoy this committee. It's very interesting, and we do a lot of quite intense work. So you know, it's a good committee to be on, and thank you very much indeed. So, end of meeting. Thank you.